Welcome back, everyone. We've got a truly fascinating explainer lined up for you today. We're going to take a really deep dive into a superhuman, deeply spiritual topic, the scriptural process of restoration. Whether you know these historical texts like the back of your hand or you're looking at them with fresh eyes, we're going to break down exactly how a community heals and restores one of its own using the source material provided. I am so excited to share this with you, so let's just jump right in.
Okay, to set the stage, let's start with a pretty crucial question. What happens after discipline actually achieves its purpose? So often when we think about the whole concept of discipline, our minds jump straight to the action itself, right? The penalty phase. But that's not what this explainer is about. We are focusing squarely on the ultimate biblical goal that comes after all of that, the healing, the recovery, and the joyous return.
Section 1. The Power of Godly Sadness.
Okay, let's dive into this. To fully grasp how this works, we first need to establish the foundational emotional concept that triggers the entire restoration process. The source material points us directly to this really profound quote from 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 10. It says, "Sadness in the godly way produces repentance, leading to salvation." What's actually fascinating here is the direct, logical chain of events. It's not just about feeling bad just for the sake of feeling bad. No, it's a highly specific kind of sadness, a godly sadness, that acts like a powerful catalyst. It actively produces repentance, and that repentance is the necessary bridge leading straight to salvation. It's an emotion with a very specific job to do.
Moving on to Section 2, Discipline and its Purpose.
So now that we've got the core principle of godly sadness down, let's see how this actually played out in a real, historical situation recorded in the Bible. We're going to break down how a first-century congregation handled a seriously major issue, step by step. We can trace the journey of a specific guy in the Corinthian congregation. Step 1. The source text in 1 Corinthians 5:1 notes that this man had sexual relations with his stepmother, which resulted in a necessary disciplinary action from the congregation. But look closely at step 2. He experiences that exact godly sadness we just talked about, and that leads to genuine repentance. Which brings us to step 3, found over in 2 Corinthians chapter 2. The Apostle Paul notes that the rebuke given by the majority became sufficient. Basically, it did its job, it successfully served its necessary function toward this man.
So, looking at that clear progression on the timeline, we kind of have to pause and ask ourselves, what was the ultimate purpose of this discipline? Why did the congregation have to take that incredibly difficult step in the first place? Think about the logical flow of what we've just covered for a second before we reveal the exact scriptural answer.
So the crucial point is this, to lead him to repentance. And this is completely supported by Hebrews 12:11 in our source text. The disciplinary action was absolutely never meant to be the end goal. It was merely a tool used for a specific duration. The singular driving purpose was always to guide this erring individual right back to a state of repentance. And logically, once that incredible goal was achieved, the discipline had completely served its purpose.
Which brings us to Section 3, Forgive, Comfort, Confirm Love. Now this is where the narrative arc of our explainer shifts beautifully. The focus is no longer just on the repentant man and his personal journey. The focus expands to the critical active role the congregation absolutely must play in his return. Because, as we'll see, true restoration is a community effort. The Apostle Paul didn't just tell the congregation, hey, let the matter drop now that he's repented. He gave them 3 very distinct active directives. First, kindly forgive. Second, comfort the erring brother. And third, confirm your love for him. The congregation isn't allowed to just sit on the sidelines as passive bystanders watching someone return. They are explicitly instructed to actively participate in his emotional and spiritual recovery.
And that leads right into Section 4, actively welcoming them back.
And this brilliantly illustrates the practical application of it all. How does a community actually execute these specific instructions from Paul? Like, what does the act of confirming your love actually look like in the real world? Well, we see a really stark contrast here. On one side, we have the passive approach, merely allowing the man back among Jehovah's people, basically just opening the door and letting him exist in the space. But the source material explicitly states Paul wanted them to do so much more than that. He demanded the active approach, assuring the repentant man by their words, their manner, and their actions. It's the massive difference between mere tolerance and genuine, enthusiastic acceptance.
So how do we actually pull off that active acceptance? The text breaks it down into very tangible, deeply human elements. You assure a repentant person through words of true forgiveness, and I mean actually speaking the words out loud so they hear they are forgiven. You do it through a comforting manner, which means paying attention to your tone of voice and just being approachable. You do it through loving actions. Ultimately, you are making it unmistakably clear that they are welcomed back into the congregation. They need to genuinely feel the forgiveness in their bones, not just know about it intellectually.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought to chew on. How will your words and actions confirm your love for a returning brother? Think about it. When someone has done the incredibly hard work of repenting and returning, how will you personally ensure they know they are loved, comforted, and truly welcomed home? It's a huge responsibility, but also a really beautiful opportunity to put these ancient, yet absolutely relevant instructions into practice. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today as we broke down this really fascinating topic. For more information, please visit jworg.org. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon to get the notification for new explainers. See you next time.